34F, found out my pastor and therapist husband has been having numerous affairs. My husband and I have been married for 12 years and he runs an alcohol treatment center that is heavily religious in nature. His father was a pastor, and when he was in school he studied first to also be a pastor and then pivoted towards a master's degree in pastoral counseling with a focus on substance abuse treatment after he was denied for a position at a church he really wanted. One thing leads to another, and in our heavily Southern Baptist area he ends up founding an organization and treatment center that incorporates our faith into sobriety. It has become a mainstay for a lot of local people, and people see it as a family. My husband is a great speaker, so he draws in a lot of interest and can easily get people to work for him for free, even though he makes a significant amount every time somebody signs up for a program. In fact, if he spent even 10% of his profit on payroll, these people would be making miles above the national average for their job. I often feel astonished that people aren't resentful that their contributions aren't being compensated for every fraction of what it is worth. But for years I never really questioned my husband or what he did for work because I thought he was doing good, and everybody at the church we go to where he speaks at regularly also admires him. However, in recent years, because our sons are now turning 10 and 8, I have been going to community college for paralegal studies and was able to be mentored by friends in the legal profession. I had put off college for so many years because of my relationship and because my husband said I didn't have to worry and that I could stay home and focus on the kids. I found an intellectual curiosity that I never knew I had, and definitely want to pursue a career in law. This didn't go over well with my husband, and I started to see how dismissive he was of most of my thoughts. I also found out he was lying pretty compulsively to people regarding his childhood and other credentials. A lot of which was to either elicit sympathy or make himself seem more brave or prodigal. For example, he said that his late mom was a habitual cocaine user throughout her life who beat him. An account that everybody in his family says is not true, and he also admitted was not true, but that he couldn't think of a good way to spin why he really went into the substance abuse field. He also constantly mocks every person he's around for work and basically says they will never amount to anything and that they are idiots for either working for free or paying through their nose to get sober. When I married him thinking he was a great guy and that I would stick by him for life, but I find every day more unbearable. At home, he is a totally different person than in public. We had hired a cleaning company and a friend of mine knew the owner. The owner said that he could have made a lot of money off saying that my husband was a client of his, but that he decided it wasn't worth it because of how my husband treated the cleaners who came over to our house. While requests by us have been met with schedule conflicts, we have obviously been banned, and I know that it's because of my husband's dismissive, irate nature. The straw that broke the camel's back was me going to the doctors with symptoms and finding out that I had a bacterial STD after missing periods and having a mysterious mild fever. But I knew that I wasn't the one sleeping around, so when I told my husband about the diagnosis he freaked out and admitted to an affair. I was heartbroken but told him he needed to tell her and her sexual partners about this, and that's when it came out that he was having numerous affairs and he didn't want to tell anyone about it. He got tested and it turns out he was asymptomatic. I found out one of them was a long-term thing, but others were midnight bar flings across the country or escorts. He claimed that his life was stressful and it was just an outlet. He agreed to wear a condom until I could trust him again and said he wanted to work this out. And that we had to, or it would be public shame for both of us. For a couple days after this he was very apologetic, buying me gifts and surprising me with a planned trip to Paris. However, when he said that I should trust his expertise and refused to see an independent therapist even though there are so many virtual options that would have gotten us a reputable therapist on the other side of the country, he reverted back to being dismissive and ambushed me with an impromptu sit-down about our marriage where he began painting infidelity recovery in a way that it was still only on his terms. I had had enough and we ended up sleeping in different bedrooms. He responded to this by making the concession that I can have the passcode to his phone now and that he won't ever get mad if I ask him to verify where he is going, but he also wants things to go back to normal and for me to act like this never happened. He said we'd be ruined if we divorce and tried to bribe me by saying that I could get a job at his organization to further the career he was fighting me on. But when I still didn't just put a smile on my face and say all is forgiven, he will say that I would have a hard life if I divorced him and that my career would be unrewarding and take me nowhere. What do I do? Our boys feel the tension but both are overawed by their father. I cannot imagine starting over and I feel like he would be very resentful of any divorce. But the duplicity of his and by extension our life is giving me whiplash. Your husband sounds like a narcissist. He does not sound like the person who has valued you, or anyone else, in any way, and when he says, "We'd be ruined if we divorce," he means he and his reputation would be ruined if he divorced. You should think about why he doesn't want to go to a therapist and which one of you benefits from what he's insisting is the right path. It's not gonna be your sons if they're learning from his example. Oh, he is half right. His reputation will be ruined. Oh the F well. You're not the guilty scum that did this. He is. You'll be just fine. Get a lawyer. Tell both of your families what is going on and fight for your child. Obviously you get a divorce and get tested for STDs. Test again in 6 months for HIV, as it does not immediately appear sometime. Or would you like to wait around and get a batch of syphilis? I hear it's making a real comeback these days. My 34M ex 33F wants me to pay for her son's school. My ex and I dated for some time and we had a son together. We broke up shortly afterwards. I wouldn't say it was completely amicable, but it wasn't terrible either. We still co-parent without child Jacob 12M. I've done well for myself and I own my own home and can afford to send my son to a good school. My ex also had a son with another partner, but unfortunately he passed away. She isn't financially well-to-do. She stays in a 2-bedroom apartment in a bad side of town. My son stays with me most of the time since I'm the one who takes him to school. I've met my ex's kid a couple of times. He sometimes calls me dad and it weirds me out. Anyway, he'll be starting school and his mom asked if I could pay for his schooling. She completely blindsided me and my son was there and he even advocated. This is one of the many reasons we split and I do not like her. I told her I wasn't interested and she can take her son and piss off. Now, my son is upset, thanks to her twisting his mind, and she's now threatening to file for more custody. She can't win more custody. She's basically broke and is living on government assistance. But I'm afraid she'll try to sabotage my relationship with my son. I'm seriously thinking of going for full custody now. What do I do? Too long did not read. My ex wants me to pay for her son's school. You shouldn't feel obligated to pay for someone else's kid's schooling. That's some bullshit, and her approach was clearly disastrous. Don't let her use custody as a weapon to force you to do anything. You need to explain to your son why you are no longer together, and that since you're no longer together, why you feel you do not need to pay for her son's schooling. It's unfortunate that she's involving your son for her cause, but that's very manipulative. Good luck. Don't pay for anyone's kid's schooling fees who is not yours. As for custody, tell her to go to court and that you'll see her there. Get a good lawyer ASAP. She'll turn your son against you with her manipulation. Third time a variation of this story has been published recently. My 24 female, HS bully, 24 female, thinks she's the victim and threatened me. Throwaway account. So in middle school, I was the new kid. I moved to a new town a year before going into middle school, and since all my classmates had been together since kindergarten, I had a rough time making friends. But at middle school orientation, I met Kay. It seemed that she was both well known and well liked around school. Having spent the year before alone, I was super excited to have a friend group. Within this group, I was one out of 2 socially awkward girls. I found myself bonding with the other socially awkward girl over the understanding of being left out, because Kay relentlessly teased her. But pretty soon, Kay started turning on me. It started small. Jokes made at my expense in front of boys or the occasional comment about my appearance. I always just laughed along because it was better to have friends that sometimes made hurtful jokes than to not have friends at all. Then she started to escalate. She'd make fun of my small chest to the point where I became so self-conscious that I'd wear 2 bras to school. Kay was well developed. She'd make fun of my size and height. My interests and sense of style were ridiculed. My intelligence was degraded. Whenever I got an assignment back with a lower score than Kay, she called me stupid despite my straight A's. When I got my first crush, Kay started dating him within a week of finding out I liked him. This went on for 3 years. On top of that, I dealt with emotionally abusive parents. Each day at school was a barrage of teasing, while I had my every move criticized each day at home. By the time I was in high school, I hated everything about myself. And when we reached spring of 9th grade, I was pretty broken. One day in March, we're in class. As usual, Kay made fun of my A since she'd gotten an A+. I decided to stand up for myself and defended myself for the first time in our friendship by saying, It doesn't feel very nice to constantly be called stupid. Kay started giving me the silent treatment then, and within a week, she ended our friendship with a text saying she hates everything I do and say. Since Kay was the group leader, I was shunned. At this point, I didn't feel like I had anywhere to turn. With the loneliness and lack of social connections and self-hate and abusive family, I went to a dark place 2 weeks into August. Then again in November. Luckily, I survived. I still spent the rest of high school without many friends, but ultimately made it out. I went to college in a small town a few hours away because it was the one state school that had the least amount of people from my high school attending. Unfortunately, Kay decided to attend as well. But we had limited interaction. Once, I had to approach a group she was in while working to promote an athletic event. Another time, I added her on SC after she came up as a suggestion but didn't interact. Meanwhile, she was always the first person to view my story. Eventually, I blocked her. Post-college, I once walked out of a restaurant after a double date and she was standing outside with a man, I assume waiting for a table. Out of curiosity, I requested her on IG that evening, then blocked her the next day after realizing I don't care what she's up to. Now for the drama. In July, after working one day, I was walking to my car when I noticed her across the street. For a block, we walked in the same direction on opposite sides of the street, me on north side, Kay on south side. I needed to be on the next block south and also didn't want to continue walking across from her, so at the first crosswalk, I turned and passed her while she continued straight. Then a month ago, while dealing with spam calls and scrolling through my blocked numbers list, my finger hovered a bit too closely when I looked away for a task. After hearing my phone start to ring, I looked down to see my phone was FaceTiming her. I ended the call as quickly as I could, thinking that if her number is blocked then surely it wouldn't go through. I got this text from an unknown number a few hours later. Mistake 1. You have been and continue to harass my fiancé, E. in person and online. Mistake 2. You tried to approach and potentially harass her in person. Mistake 3. You just tried to contact her and leave your phone number. Now it's my turn. I know who you are and what you are doing, and I'm only going to say this once. If I find out or see your phone number or name pop up on her phone one more time, I will contact the police and file a report of harassment. Grow up and live your own life. Now, I always theorized that Kay was jealous of me. My face, body haven't changed much since HS, and I've always been thin, small, and am considered conventionally attractive. Kay wasn't unattractive, but she was a bigger, well-developed girl, and since HS she's noticeably gained weight. But I was never unkind or vengeful, nor did I ever inflict harm against her to warrant her treatment towards me. Hell, back in HS I even reached out to inform her that she was still invited to my quinceañera since she was supposed to be a part of it before she socially outcasted me, and she attended. From this text, it sounds like she's framed herself as the victim and me as some obsessed perpetrator against her. I've grown so much since high school and gone to so much therapy to undo the emotional harm inflicted on me by both her and my abusive parents. But I feel the rage of the child inside me that never got to fight for herself. I'm moving states in a few weeks to start grad school, but before I go I've wanted to defend myself and set the story straight about who's really the victim and the perpetrator here. Should I confront her? If so, how? Note that we live in a small town, so there exists a reasonable probability of seeing people you know, and I just saw her with her fiancé last weekend at the farmer's market while I was there with my partner. Too long did not read. My high school bully frames me as the perpetrator to people around her, and her fiancé threatened me for contacting her when my contact was essentially a butt dial. Edits for clarification. I see a lot of people saying that the social media pattern of adding then blocking is weird. I completely understand how it looks. It seems that people have an impression that this was happening every week or something though. The 2 occasions of adding her then blocking her happened over the course of 9 years. Once in college, roughly 5-6 years ago, and once last year. Another thing people have been getting caught up on is the accidental call. On iPhones, if you go Settings Phone Blocked Contacts, it provides a list of every number you've ever blocked. I block nearly every spam call I get, so that list is quite long and filled with random numbers. Her number has been in my phone and blocked, but I deal with some anxiety and keep it there as a suggestion from my therapist so that I can always verify that it's blocked. I'll admit that I had clicked on it. If you have a contact blocked, it shows their name in this list, to soothe anxiety that it was blocked. I had looked away from my phone because I was multitasking, but my hand was still hovered over my phone. And since I wasn't paying as much attention, my hovered hand lightly touched the screen. The call to her was absolutely not purposeful, and I spent the rest of the day fighting off a panic attack about it. Ignore it. Don't bother confronting. And remove her damn number from your phone FFS. You've been really weird on social media and randomly calling and hanging up. Yes, she terrorized you in middle school, but right now, you are the strange one, intentional or not. Delete her contact info, stop following her on social media, leave her in the past. Don't let someone live rent-free in your head. My partner doesn't take no for an answer. Possibly triggering. Been with my partner since my early teens. We are now 18, I am a female, my partner is a male. See, we've been together for quite a while as I've mentioned. We've never had sex. I keep telling him I'm not ready. Which is true, I'm not. I am interested in sex, yes, but I have a gut feeling to wait for a bit. He was fine with this. At first. We do some sexual stuff, hands, going down, etc. He's almost always horny and always wants us to do something sexual. I know it's normal, but I don't really want to do sexual shit every single time we are together. I also want to talk to him, laugh with him, cuddle. However, when I don't do something he wants, he starts to convince me, and if I still say no, he gets extremely bumped, to the point where he just sits while looking down and ignores me until I give in. I don't like that. I don't enjoy that. It makes me cry. When I told him no means no and he's making me do things I don't want to do, he started to cry hard, and I was the one who comforted him, forcing myself to not fall apart. What do? I don't want this, but breaking up with someone I've spent a significant amount of time with seems scary. This is also one of the reasons why I don't want to have sex with him. I don't think I want to lose my virginity to him. I know when you're 18, a few years feels like forever. But I promise you that if you break up with him, you won't even remember his name when you're 25. And you won't even be thinking of him in a few months. He's an ass. Get out now before you waste more time on him. I think you answered yourself, you don't want to lose your virginity to him. He's shown that all he cares about is sexual stimulation. If I'm dating someone and I don't get the vibes that I'd be comfortable in bed, I'm not gonna go there. You need to break up with him. It is possible the no he won't take for an answer will be when he forces actual sex and your virginity is gone. You trust him to not do that, but he is proving he doesn't care about what you want or don't want. Don't think about the time you have been with him. The few teenage years with him won't even matter by the time you are 20. You have years and years to give to the right person who actually cares about you.